We're going to get started if everyone's ready. Ready, Mike? Okay, good evening. It's 7:04 PM on Monday, October 13th. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Mike, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark? Here. Trustee Whitehead? Here. Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Naramatsu?
Here.
Trustee Kilhooly?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzzi?
Here.
President Darby?
Here. Okay, thank you very much. The first item, we have a discussion concerning a proposed concept plan for potential development at 3415 Maple Avenue, the old Brookfield Bowl site that the village obtained ownership over a few years back, and we had a developer approach us. Tim and Libby and staff have been working, and they wanted to make a presentation to the board. But I'm going to turn it over to our village manager, Tim Weiberg, first to explain what tonight it's about, what it is and what it's not tonight, and then we'll go from there on the presentation.
Well, it's not a lot of things, but I can start with what it is. But thank you very much, President Garvey. This is, at least the time that I've been here, a first for this type of presentation. And really, the way I categorize it is as a temperature-taking exercise. As you mentioned, President Garvey, we have a long vacant parcel we affectionately call the bowling alley site because there used to be a bowling alley there at Maple, just behind Tischler's. And since I've been there, I've had a lot of meetings with a lot of different developers with a lot of different proposals. I'd say this one is different. Could be exciting. And the developers, I'll let them speak for themselves, potential developers, but they would like to just present their concept to you all, to the board, and just to see if you like the concept before they understand and they're ready and willing, perhaps, to go. There will have to be some zoning hearings, perhaps some variations if they decide to go forward with this concept. But, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but they didn't want to do that until they had an opportunity to present before you all. So what this is not a conversation, there's no vote taken by the board tonight. We're not looking for you to circumvent the Plan Commission and doing their process for whatever variations may or may not be needed. This is not a substitute for the public hearings that will happen and be required for the Plan Commission. This is nothing more than an opportunity for a potential developer to take a long vacant site and just present their concepts to you all and see what you think about them. So with that said, I will turn it over to the architect or the developers, whoever wants to speak.
Welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for all the time you spent so far with staff, and we appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you. My name is Alex Cazzoloni. I'm an architect.
Mark Farnan, neighbor.
Ted Hills in cybersecurity.
Okay. All right, who wants to go
The
first?
floor is yours, guys.
Maybe I will quickly explain what's
Maybe if you want to, whoever's speaking, maybe step in front of the microphone just so that we can hear you, but maybe.
Absolutely. What you can see on the screen, this is 2D elevation of proposed sports bar. Also, the 3D elevation, as you can see on this one. So the next slide, if we can change the slides.
She just gave you the clicker.
Oh,
Press the big button.
big button, okay. Okay, so next slide is site location and public parking nearby, because we are short on the parking at the site. So the Valley people can park cars on the public parking. And also there is another opportunity to park cars, but developer will explain later.
Yeah, so we noticed that, how big our building is, we're looking at 47 square feet, and then with the rooftop, right? And what's nice about the rooftop is you have the skyline view from the city, which is great. But the problem is, we said, okay, this building, we can only fit so many spots. But there are 100 spots on the road, but most importantly, Tischler's gave us the right to rent out their parking area for extra parking, which would be right in back, right behind the alley, if you know where that lot is. And what we tend to do is actually, it's not, we don't want, you know, the average bar. We want it to be a family-friendly bar where people can bring their kids, they can, you know, go there and be able to relax. It's not, you know, what we call people coming and going and drinking all night. It's more of a family-oriented place is what we're looking for, and something that we think would be nice in the area. And plus, it's obviously a net new building. And I think, honestly, it's the only rooftop around that we know in the area besides Finley Park. But,
If you know,
oh, yeah, and Grange.
Okay, so the next slide, site plan. We have footprint of the building, approximately 4,500 square feet, and we have parking lots.
Alex, if you could talk into the mic.
We have approximately 45 square foot building footprint on the site plan. Also, we have parking. We have 26 parking spots on the site, and we have 4 parking spots in front of the building, parallel parking spots. Also, we have trash enclosure, we have handicapped parking spaces, and also that green area in front of the building, we can plant some bushes to shield the parking spots from the public. So the next slide, this is partial basement plan. So we can do partial basement. We can place fire pump room, electric room there, and why it's partial, because there is a possibility that the soil close to the gas station can be contaminated. We're trying to avoid excavate there, but we need more information.
It's more of a quarter basement, just for storage, and everything else that we could actually put in is more of a cold storage area. But we figured with the basement, we don't have to have things upstairs where people could see it and be aware of it, so it's more of a storage spot.
So next slide, it's first floor plan. On the right side, you can see dining area. At the middle, you can see bar area. You have 2 exits required by code, elevator, which goes to the second floor roof deck. On the left side, we have kitchen area and office, and some coolers and freezers. Yeah.
Yep, and then the kitchen, and then we'll obviously have 2 exits up to code, 2 bathrooms on the first floor, and then 2 bathrooms on the upstairs floor. But we understand, right, you need an elevator to go upstairs, and then most importantly, we want to be able to, people enjoy the outside when it is a nice day. And there will be a cover, do you have a?
Yeah, this is the second floor. Yeah.
So we will have a cover on top, and then when it does rain or get cold, we have drop-down shades that will go down to protect you from, it'll be clear, but it'll protect you from the rain or the snow or wind if people actually really want to go up there in the wintertime. They'll be in full use all year round.
So when weather is good, those gates can be pulled up, and people can have access to the bar area. So that line represents roof above the dining area, so plenty of space. Also, we have 2 exits required by code from the roof deck, and the toilets can be accessed by the elevator going down to the toilets at the first floor. You want to add something?
Square feet. So we're looking on the bottom floor, right? We don't want it too big. I don't even think we have the survey yet for the lot itself, but we're looking for the downstairs probably to be about 4,800, 4,700 square feet. And then up top, we're thinking about 2,000 square feet. Because we will have a wall that overlooks to that gas station. We're gonna be running it, what is it, this way? Is that what, north? North-south, but we will have a wall up with the air conditioners in back, so we don't have to look at the gas station, whoever's sitting up top.
So the next slide, this is front elevation and rear elevation. We are proposing to use Nichiha fiber cement boards for for the facade. And as you can see, there is a roof deck, and it shows the roof deck cover. It's actually better, you can better to see it on the 3D rendering that is down here. So, yeah. So you can see roof deck here with glass railing. Here's office, here's dining area, entry, and here is a staircase to the second floor.
And then we'll have sliding doors, just with the screen, so you could, you know, when it's nice out, you could open these sliding doors. You ever see the sliding doors that go collapse into one? So we're looking to do that instead of the garage doors. I think it would be more, but most importantly, we want windows out front, so people are driving by, people can see and understand that this is a nice family-oriented place, but we will have lots of TVs and TVs for seating area and everything else.
And rooftop units will be located on this part of the building, at the far end, that it will not be seen from the building. So I just would like to show you this 3D rendering for the one up. Yeah, that's how it's going to look like. So, and, yeah, this is front and rear elevations, and the last slide, it is side elevations. And that's it.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I know you're referring to it as a bar, but you did say there's a kitchen. I mean, food is a major component of this. I mean, we're not,
Yeah, we wanted to, people after baseball, softball, volleyball, we want to make sure that they can come in and have a good meal. We've sponsored other bars, we've backed other bars, and we think food's most important, right? People want good food, they want a good place, if it's pizza, if it's a hamburger, whatever it is.
okay. I mean, that's something important to me, and I think because sometimes there's a reference of a bar versus a bar/restaurant, and you talked about it being family-oriented, and you hit on baseball. We do have a few baseball games and softball games around here, and people do look for places to go. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it's a
Bar and group, that's, okay,
Yeah, and mainly our attraction will be the food.
okay. Open it up to the board, and again, just remember what we're doing here and what we're not doing here. They just want to get a little feedback on us, from us about possibly taking steps to go forward, but we don't need to address and shouldn't address any variation questions or parking questions or anything like that. But feel free to give input and questions.
Could I ask you to go back to the site plan? Are you able to do that? Uh-oh, that's the other. Do we know if that alley is paved or not? Is it gravel? Okay, great. Because I noticed that we're using, your site plan looks like it's using the alley essentially as the drive aisle, so that would be important to me, knowing
Yeah,
that that's a paved alley.
Yeah, actually we are. So, and there is a setback. We assume we don't have a survey yet, unfortunately, but we assume that the alley width is 16 inches. That's why I have offset 4 inches to make alley 20 feet wide in order car safely to park in the parking stalls.
Other questions, comments, feedback from the board?
I have a question. I live right there, so this sounds great. But you're right next to a lot of houses and a lot of neighborhood. Are you thinking about live music at a sports bar and a rooftop?
Yeah, it would be inside, right, because we know that no one wants to hear loud music after 9 o'clock, right?
Great answer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, building off of Trustee Kaluzny's question, I'm excited about the concepts. I think our community could certainly use more businesses like this and on a vacant site. I appreciate that you already had conversations with particulars about a shared parking agreement, which is something this board has expressed interest in the past, and making better use of available parking is important. But again, I think the concern is, that we will hear the most, or the interest from residents, is the proximity to so many homes and the impact on the community, right? So not just the noise, but the, loitering, people coming in and out. So I'm just wondering what thought or approach you would take in terms of, being so close to so many residential homes and the impact you're gonna have on those neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. I have kids too, right? And
Yeah.
It's most important to keep them sleeping. So, we're thinking during the week that at night, it's probably like a 9 o'clock limit for the upstairs, so it's not so loud. But so much that we're doing steel beams and brick, so it's not gonna be, leaking outside. But, it's a busy road to begin with. So I don't think it'll be so much us making the noise, it's the cars that are actually going back and forth through there.
Yeah.
But weekends, I don't know what all the rules are, but weekends, we're hoping to keep it open probably till 10 o'clock at night, so people can sit outside.
What is the noise ordinance, do you guys know?
That's an interesting topic, with a specific noise ordinance. Maybe staff could fill you in on the exact, we don't specifically have a exact noise ordinance, but when you say be open, you're talking just the upstairs be open till 9 or 10, but the rest of it would be open later?
Yes.
Yes, that's when you said 10 o'clock, I just, I'm sure you're talking about the upstairs, maybe on the weekends, 9 o'clock during the week and 10 o'clock on the weekends.
Whatever
Yeah.
rules you guys have, that we will follow.
Well, I think, the concept you're describing, obviously, some of the events and things, if people are coming to watch a sporting event, then those tend to go until later in the night and things like that. And there's a football game tonight that's gonna go on way past 9 or 10 o'clock probably, and things like that, so.
So what we do on top, on the window slides going down, those are also gonna be soundproof.
Okay.
So what we do at 9 o'clock is you lower those, and that should cut down the noise. But, realistically, where the football only plays till probably, once in a great while, 9 o'clock part of the year, 9 or 10. But we understand the noise concern.
And will food be served in your concept at all times when the bar is open, and so it's never just a bar?
I will, it'll probably close down at 11,
The kitchen?
the kitchen will close down at 11.
Okay.
Honestly, I'd like to stop serving at 10 o'clock, but I know sometimes people get out of work, they want some pizza or whatever it is, and the kids are hungry on a weekday, they get done playing baseball, double headers or whatever it is. I understand that point, but we don't want the kitchen going all night.
Okay,
But it'll be open when we open.
sure.
I really appreciate the idea of filling this vacant lot with a business like this. I'm curious, I'm sure you've done, I don't know if you live in the area or nearby, there are a lot of bars, restaurants in Brookfield and immediately surrounding, and I'm just curious, I guess, what your thoughts are on the capacity to do well when we have a fair amount of these kinds of businesses in Brookfield.
Well, I'm born and raised, obviously, around here, LaGrange, we all went to LT and everything else, but to be honest, I don't think there's a bar like this. Yes, we have Irish Times, and it's all different types of bars, but there's no really bar where you could go outside for a while and get fresh air or see the skyline. And,
Have good food, bring your kids,
it's all about good food. And
I mean,
we've
I'll
had
be there if
chefs-
there's good food.
Yeah, we've had chefs and, at our other places that we would like to bring over, but yeah, most importantly, so, there's no way to tell how many people will be coming and going, but that's why we wanted to keep the downstairs at a limited of around 4,800 square feet, where it's not too big and overwhelming, and we can't fill it. But we also don't want where people are waiting an hour to get in either, especially when you have young ones. We've all gone through that, right, where it's, 15 minutes for us, they want to go home.
Are you currently operating other
Not at
businesses like
point-
this?
Not at this time, no.
And just to be clear, this is more for the public, the board, we refer to that as the bowling alley site, but there's actually two lots. There's the where the, actually bowling alley building used to be in the parking lot adjacent to it, so, but this is obviously taking both of those sites together. We have control of both and own both, but I guess just to make that clear, it's the two sites together.
I think it's an interesting concept, and there probably should be, additional conversation with staff in the very near future, and kind of seeing just what would be needed for it, what is being asked of us.
Any other comments from the board?
I'll just say I appreciate the idea of being able to look east and see the skyline, because you're right, there's not that many places around it where you can do that here. And then you can go to the top of the apartment building here in town, it's a pretty nice view, but it's not open to the public, so, that is pretty unique, something unique that this project brings.
Yeah, and we want people biking to the Brookfield Zoo, I think that draws a lot of people, but honestly, I think a lot of people are also able to come downtown, take the train if they want to go there, but I think it'll draw a younger crowd to this area, to be honest. It's some newer things and other things going up.
Should make sure to have bike racks then. I appreciate the concept. I think it's an attractive building, and I like the idea of having a sit-down restaurant that's open in the evenings in the Eight Corners area, because we don't have something like that yet. So I think that there could be a market for it, and I'd like to hear more.
And I know it's just a label, but it's semantics, but I mean, referring to it, I mean, sometimes people hear sports bar and they think bar. I think the way you characterize this as a bar grill, is pretty important to even explain it or market that way, or, address it that way. And
It's like a 1,200 square foot kitchen.
I-
There's gonna be
that-
7 cooks in there.
Okay.
So it's not like this is not
And I saw your drawing, and I hope you get more creative with the name. I don't think sports bar is a very creative name, so,
Eight corners.
The name is
Eight corners.
okay.
Eight Corners Sports.
So-
But yeah, we just,
No, I'm joking, but,
no,
no. I know you've spent a lot of time, and, you've spent some money on this already. As Tim indicated, it's probably the first time we've taken this particular step to, have you come in front of the board and make a preliminary. We're not taking any action tonight, we're not giving any acceptance or approval, but you did hear comments from the board, and I think it would be appropriate if you talk to staff in the next couple of days about what steps you might want to take going forward. Okay?
we do appreciate your time and having us here tonight.
I appreciate you taking out, and I appreciate you showing interest in Brookfield, and hopefully we can work with you going forward.
Perfect, sure.
Thanks so much.
Have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, the next item we have up for discussion is concerning the Brookfield Shops Courtyard pavers. As I know the board's aware, we submitted for a Cook County Arts Creative Placemaking Grant, and Libby and her staff have been diligently working to try and get this through and get this work, a lot of this work done this fall to make it work. We're still sorting out some of the details of the grant, but one of the things that we wanted to bring forward to the board was kind of a discussion about the type of pavers to be used. So, again, we have a very detailed memo, but I'm going to turn it over to Libby at this point to talk about our options going forward with basically the choice of paving, brick pavers that we could use in that area. So, Libby, thank you so much.
No, thank you, and I do apologize in the excitement of bringing the developers in. I forgot to bring the actual pavers that I wanted you to see, which I do have in the office. I can run and grab them. The point of the meeting was to have the board look at which paver you would prefer. This is part of the Creative Placemaking Grant, and we've been working very closely with various landscapers to get quotes and kind of see what would fit in there within the very detailed budget that we have to give to LISC, which is the Local Initiative Support Initiative, and then also to Cook County. So they were out there on October 1st to take a look at the site, and our first big push is to try to get the courtyard and performing arts space. So if you would give me
Would
a couple of minutes, I can. Yeah, well, we had them delivered so you could actually see them, and I completely forgot to bring them in. Yeah, no, I'm going to grab them. No, I've been carrying them around all week. So no, you're good. No, grab them. We'll grab them, pass them around.
Say, who's got some jokes from show tunes? Was there a Bears game tonight? Did not know that.
So we have three options. We have the town hall, and I do have the prices listed for those. And then our other two options are, we have the Charleston, and I brought this one so you guys can see it, because, well, this is no exercise. These have a variation in the color. So it can be as much as this or this one. So this is one. This is one staff's recommending. But then we also have the other one. Heritage, which is just the south.
Deanne, can you turn the surface towards the board a little bit there? Okay. And what's this one called?
And that is town hall.
Okay.
Can you tell me where in the, like, is it the whole surface or is it the edge? It looks like the middle parts in this photo is more like,
It's just 1,500 square feet in the middle. So that is what we're doing, 1,500 square feet.
it's the stage portion?
It includes the stage portion,
Okay,
which will include this plus a border on it.
got it.
So the recommendation was that this is a community project, so we don't need to be picking it ourselves. We did want the board to weigh in on it. These go together.
Mike, you want to pass that down?
Yeah.
So can I ask again, is it like this part or this part?
It's both, actually. Yeah, you're just picking out which pavers it's gonna be. The border of it is gonna be separate. There's a separate paver for that. But these are your main pavers. So the initial rendering, that's just a preliminary one.
The initial rendering
the two.
shows the stage area being raised up. This would all be at the same level now, and the stage area would be done in a complementing paver to kind of set it off a little different, but it would not be a stage literally that stepped up.
So it'd be the same level, the stage would be the same level as the,
Right. And we decided to do that. It's easier to access for accessibility and usage of the space, too.
Yeah, I think it makes it more flexible. Sorry, I'm not sure if I heard, what's the actual pattern of the bricks that's going to be in that area? I saw that there was a soldier course around the stage area, but.
There is going to be a soldier course around the stage area, just to delineate it as kind of the performance area. And as part of the grant, we're also purchasing these Triscuits, which are portable stage, like cubes. So if there's a bigger production, those can be brought out. But it'll just delineate a small, I think it's 12 by 15 space, that'll be like the actual performing arts part. And that's all part of the creative grant project. The other component of that is community involvement. So when we had the site visit, we did invite everyone from the community. Several of the trustees were able to come, so thank you so much. We had the artists that were able to be there, the vendors, so everyone can weigh in. And that's also part of the reason that we're asking you to weigh in on which of these pavers you'd like to pick.
Do we know the pattern that they're going to be in the main part of the courtyard, though? Because the rendering that we have is really different. It looks like it's a stone paver that's really not anything like this one. So I'm just
Right,
trying to
that was
picture
just
what
the
we're gonna have.
original, yeah, that's just the original preliminary one. We do not have a final one.
Do we know how they're going to be laid out? Is it like a herringbone pattern, or are they out?
I believe trustee Ketchmark was there when we met. Do you remember if?
I believe he talked about a herringbone pattern and then using the soldier course with either the same brick or using a different brick for the stage area.
Right.
Thank you.
okay, questions or comments from the board? I guess we're trying to get a consensus here on the bricks. We have the price of each of the bricks, and we've had a chance, bring them out, thank you for bringing them out.
Oh, you're welcome.
it's-
Sorry, I completely
No.
forgot to bring them out, lay them
It's
out
a
earlier.
big
so
night. I know you were
apologize.
meeting with the developers before the meeting, so I appreciate that.
I think the ones that you said have the variation between would look really nice if it was a herringbone pattern. It might look weird if it was all
One color.
trying to, yeah, or if it's trying to be more of a uniform pattern, it might look weird with two different colors. But something that's, if the bricks are
Little
gonna be
unique. Mhm.
arranged differently, then I think that would look nice.
And that's the Charleston, I believe.
That was the Holland Premier Charleston, that was the staff's recommendation.
Those are the same, we're looking at the color variation options.
Right, there's a bigger scale of color between those two.
So how does the board feel, staff's recommendation or some other favorite?
I'm fine. I'm
Okay.
fine with staff's recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with the comments that I think it would look good in the pattern, so we'll, again, there's no formal board action needed on this. It was, and I appreciate you taking the time to bring it in front of the board for the feedback on it, and obviously they're following your recommendation, but these are the types of things that I like the board to have some input on, so thank you for doing that, and thank you for hauling the bricks out here. And
Oh, no problem. I'll get those out of your way.
Just one more question.
Sure.
Just,
Sure.
It's hard to see the rendering, and I'm sorry, I haven't been to any of the meetings about it, but, so is the whole space between all of the buildings going to be pavered?
Not in between the buildings, so that's staying as mulch, so it will be the little path that goes in there, and then the triangular portion of the courtyard.
Okay. So in between each building is still,
That's going to stay as mulch, yes.
got it.
Right.
Thanks.
We were only able to do 1,500.
Sorry, I'll clarify one more thing, but so from the
Yes.
side
There'll be
to
on the side as
Broadway,
well,
it
yes.
will go all the way out to
It'll
the
come all the way
sidewalk?
through, right. So where
Okay.
the porta potties are, that'll come all the way through.
Okay.
So we're trying to get as much space as we can with the pavers, just to make it as accessible and usable.
Yep. Thank you.
so clear consensus to go with staff's recommendation, and again, this grant has been a big, it's a big help, it's exciting, but I think a lot of the board members, I know how much work has gone into this. There's been some challenges with the county and the grant, and trying to make it happen as quickly as possible. Libby and staff have been spending an inordinate amount of time on this and trying to make it happen quickly. As someone pointed out, winter is coming, but we want to try and get this done. It's been an exciting year for the shops. I stopped by on Saturday, and everyone there was saying how they've had a good season, and they're looking forward to the holiday season. So it's been a success, but it's been a ton of work. So thank you to Libby and Deanne and all staff that made this happen and is making this happen. So we appreciate it. All right. Do you want the bricks back now, or you? Well, don't carry all four back at once. No, that's,
I've been carrying these guys around for a while.
do not drop them. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the next item. We previously, this dovetailed from the feasibility study for the community center, where we talked about the next steps and financing, and there was a preliminary discussion about our options for, financing a community center, and I brought up the topic of that there was other projects, obviously, and street improvements and alleys. And we're not specifically going to talk about alleys tonight, but there is a need to talk about how we're going to move forward with the street program going forward. We passed a referendum years ago, and we did live up to what we said we were going to do, and some of those bonds are going to be coming off, but we do, and I know the board realizes this, and Derek's going to speak to this and talk about, or can talk about it, how we, for those of us that have been on the board for a long time, we were in a situation where we had to come up with the referendum to catch up from years of not doing streets and not doing street maintenance at the level, because it seemed too daunting or too expensive at the time. The voters trusted the board at the time with the referendum, and we lived up to that and have improved the streets and continue to improve the streets with the plan with the referendum money. But we knew going forward there'd be ongoing maintenance and ongoing planned replacement. These streets don't last forever. I think a typical asphalt street, 20 years is about the useful life, 20 to 25 years at most. So we could say we did our thing, we replaced the streets, but I know this board is more forward-thinking. We have to talk about what's the next cycle of replacing the streets going forward. with the existing money that we have dedicated in our general fund towards street maintenance and going forward, we won't be able to keep up with the street maintenance and street improvements and street replacements for, going forward at the level that staff thinks we should, both village staff and engineering staff. So these two topics kind of relate together because of our finances and our bonding capacity. So we've had these conversations internally a little bit. Myself and staff have been involved in this, but I wanted them to bring forward a presentation about some of our options with funding going forward. And then maybe there might be another little wrinkle that we could talk about with the feasibility study and the rec center. But I guess I'm going to turn it over to Doug. Doug put a lot of time and effort into this, and staff put a lot of time and effort in this. So we have a very detailed memo from Doug in our packet, but I'm going to ask Doug for purposes of the audience and the board to kind of go through the memo and kind of tell us where we're at and what the possibilities are. Tim, sure.
Before we turn to Doug, I just want to say a few kind of prefatory, kind of piggybacking President Garvin, what you've said, and absolutely correct. This is really a follow-up from a few committee of the wholes ago when we talked about the feasibility study. During that discussion, questions came up, well, what about paving alleys? What about our roads? What about the community center itself? And staff has met several times, and we've strategized and discussed this a lot. Tonight, I would recommend that paving alleys is a really big nut to crack. And as I think was said at that committee of the whole meeting, we're talking about $120 million to pave alleys. And I don't have any strategy I don't think, unless Doug does, I don't have any strategy that we're gonna come up with through a referendum or bonding. We have a process in place, special assessments, we could talk about potentially special service areas, and in the future, we can do that. So if the board will indulge staff tonight, I'd set that aside for the time being. And so what we're really here tonight to talk about is financing options for funding a road program and a community center. And a question or a comment came up at that committee of the whole after I get it, we've got this exciting feasibility study and indicating that the architect, in that case Williams Architects, had this really fun concept for a building. That's the fun part. Then a comment was made, well, if we can't afford this, why were we even talking about this? Why didn't we have this conversation first? And my response to that, it's a logical question to ask. And I think I said at the meeting, it would be awfully presumptuous of me or any staff member to say, we're gonna build a rec center. We think we should build a rec center. You don't want to hear that from staff. The whole purpose of that feasibility study was to hear from the community, to have an expert, in this case through a competitive process, Williams Associates was an architect that was chosen to do the study. And it was a very iterative process in that there were workshops, there were community meetings, and the result of that was a facility with amenities that our community, your community wanted. And if you were to ask me, how big of we want to build a rec center, how big should it be? I'd have no idea, staff would have no idea. What's it gonna cost? I don't know. So without that feasibility study as a first step, first of all, I would never come to you and say, I, as a village manager, think we should build a rec center. I don't think that's appropriate for staff to do, and I don't think it's what you want. So the feasibility study was done to answer a couple of questions. A, does this village board is that a priority for you to have a community center? B, what does the community think? And if we have a center like that, what type of amenities would be there and in it? That was answered. C, you answered at that committee of the whole meeting that you directed, said, yes, we would like to try to build a rec center. So tonight is kind of the logical next step. Okay, great. And I'm not expecting, and staff's not, Doug's not expecting, this will be the last conversation we're gonna have about this. We're now at okay, this is what the board wants. This is an idea of what the board would like to see built. Now let's talk about how to do it. And so we're here tonight. Doug is gonna talk about a couple options we think we can adhere to and see what happens with coming up with the $25 million to build a community center. And to President Garvey's point, we also know that one challenging, infrastructure never stops. It just never stops. Roads, you can't say, okay, we're done with the roads. Now we're not gonna touch them for the next 25, 30 years. It doesn't work that way. So we've got to come up with a feasible, legitimate, consistent program to continue, as the board has done for the last 15 years or so, aggressively and proactively dealing with the conditions of the roads, which right now are in really good shape. Thanks to the direction of the board, the leadership of the board, certainly Hancock Engineering has been very good, proactive at helping you get there. And the last few years, we've done a good job. So we're here tonight to primarily talk about staff's options and recommendations for funding a $25 million rec center and a multi-million-dollar road project for the next so many years. So with that, Doug has all the answers, and you want me to advance the slides for you? Okay, I know you struggle with this, so I'll be happy to do it. Thank you.
So I'm going to just start by telling you what the objective is here. We're looking at referendums, and we're looking at a road referendum, which would be basically a referendum on a rate increase. And for the community center, we're looking at a debt service issue referendum. Both of them are referendums. The reason we would look at a referendum, as Tim kind of alluded to, was we do not have the available funds, of course, to finance either or one of these projects. So that being said, the first part of this discussion here, I'm going to go through a tax levy. And I know a lot of you have been through there, but the reason I want to do this tax levy part is because I want to show you exactly what we're trying to accomplish here by doing a rate referendum. And let me preface this all by saying Riverside just had a rate referendum, and it passed. And it's kind of basically what we're looking at doing for the village of Brookfield. And the reason we want to do that is because we have 3 debt services that are rolling off the tax rolls, and we want to replace those rate decreases with a solid rate increase, which would be equal, which would have no effect on a tax bill. That's what the objective is here. So anyway, I'll look at my copy. So property taxes account for 45% of total general fund revenues. It's for public safety, liability insurance, parks maintenance, and employee pension costs. Now, the levy that we normally have, you can go ahead and advance to the next slide. Well, this isn't really the one. Let's go past this one. I know. Go to the second one, because I want to show them the levy. Yeah, that one right there. I know you can't see it here, but this is what the county gives us every year. It's the what we call the agency rate report. And it breaks up our levy into 2 parts. It breaks up our levy under what we call the PTEL levy, which is the capped portion, and then the uncapped portion, which is basically consists on ours. It basically consists of our 3 debt service levies.
Just to be clear, we can't see it. We have it in our packets. I don't want the audience thinking we can't see this. We do have it in our packets, so.
So the first 5 levies that we always levy for and consistently have levied for over the past since I've been here is the general levy, the fire protection levy, the police protection levy, and the 2 pension levies. Those are all held to PTEL. What PTEL is, it's called the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. What that does is it tells non-home rule communities, you are only allowed to tax up to a certain rate, and that's what they call the limiting rate. So for those 5 levies, we are held to what's called the limiting rate. And if you look on your sheet there, you'll see our limiting rate for the 2024 levy was 1.90253. That's the limiting rate. So our PTEL levies cannot exceed that rate. What we want to do through this referendum is increase that rate. We actually want to go up to about a 2-point-something increase, which would give us the funding that we need on a consistent annual basis to fund the road program. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're looking at as far as a property tax and why we're looking particularly at a rate increase for the road and bridge, or what we would call the road program. Essentially, we're looking at, and I'll go to the next slide here. That's it. So we'll go to a 20-year road program, and Derek put all these numbers together for us. He started working on this probably about maybe 6-8 months ago when we started looking at the debt service and when it was going to start falling off of the tax roll. And then, so he came up with a couple of road program issues. One was a 20-year model, and one was a 25-year model. The 20-year model would cost the village $4 million annually to keep our roads in good shape over 20 years. And the 25-year would keep our roads in good shape over 25 years.
So what that means is any specific road would be reconstructed every 20 years. That's obviously a more aggressive program. That's gonna be a little bit more expensive per year. And in 25, if you spread it out over 25 years, perhaps you'd have roads that would outlive their design useful life, but I think they would be acceptable. That brings the dollar amount that we'd need annually down by about $500,000.
And so the current funding model that we use right now to fund our road program, outside of the last 6-7 years, when we started in 2016 with the bond issuances, we had $22 million to pave our roads. Now we are perhaps approximately funding our roads about $1.5 to $2 million annually. That program at $1.5 to $2 million would work out to be about a 50-year road program. So what we would like to do is basically go to a referendum to see if we could raise that rate and raise the money necessary to fund a 20 or 25-year road program. My model is in a 25-year road program. That's what I was looking at, but it's always flexible. I mean, this is just the initial conversation. So the way we fund our current road program is the water sewer fund, they fund approximately 25% of our road program, or about $500,000. The rest of that money for a road program comes from general fund or MFT fund. And that ranges from $1 million to $1.5 million. So there's your $2 million road program. As Derek has pointed out, this is not going to be a viable road program over the long term, as this funding it'll be about a 50-year-old program, and the roads will degrade and fall apart before we can even get enough funding to fix them. So what we're looking at is the rate increase to raise the additional $2 million to supplement what we have in our general fund and water fund to do a full 20 or 25-year road program. So if you go to the next slide, so it basically is showing the 2016 bonds, the 2018 bonds, and the 2020 bonds, which are being taxed for. On your tax bill, if you look at it, do I need to look at this slide anymore? No, I think we can go to the next.
Well, Doug, can we go, because I know a lot of the board's familiar, I'm familiar, but those 2016, 2018, and 2020 bonds that we sold, we were able to sell those because we passed a referendum that authorized us to fix the streets and do that work.
Correct.
And we couldn't do all the work at once, so we spread out the bond issuances over every 2 years for the 3-year period. And so those are all, and they were 10-year bond?
10-year bonds, right.
Okay, so when the voters approved a referendum to let us do the streets to catch up on the decades of not doing the street work that needed to be done, the voters approved a referendum amount and a tax increase to do that. We then sold bonds that first year in 2016 to do work for the next 2 years, and then 2018, we sold more in 2020. So the first set of bonds from that are going to expire in 2026. And Doug, stop me, if I'm wrong at any point, but so everyone's tax bills, our tax bills, all increased to pay the debt service on those bonds. And we told the residents that, okay, when that 2016 bond issue comes off, your taxes will be reduced slightly because we no longer have to pay those bonds. And then 2 years later, when the 2018 bonds come off, your taxes will decrease the amount that we needed to pay those. And then finally, when the 2020 bonds come off in 2030, then your tax bill would be, lower in terms of, relatively speaking, lower by the amounts needed to pay those debt services. And Doug, this is what I guess I want you to clarify. What we're asking if we did a referendum question, it would basically be to keep the residents' tax bill as it relates to paying for streets the same by having them pay the same amount that they would if we continued to have the 2016, 2018, and 2020 bond issues.
That's correct.
So there's an argument that your tax bill would not actually go up at all, but it wouldn't go down as was anticipated or as was, said we would do in 2016.
That's correct.
So, I'm not trying to play word games or semantics, but it is, if people ask how much more would this be on our tax bill if we passed a referendum, for streets, it would basically be the same amount they're continuing to pay right now, but what it would do is give us the 20 to 25-year assurance that the streets are going to be maintained.
Right, so we would provide that funding based on the rates that are currently being charged for the debt issuances. And that would just stay on your tax bill, but it would stay above the PTEL line as a rate, as a specific rate.
Okay.
So that in a nutshell is correct. I mean, we're not raising the tax levy for the residents, but we're keeping it at the same level as what they're paying right now for taxes.
I mean,
for the debt.
people's tax bills will go up over the next couple of years based on other factors. But
Correct.
if they approved a referendum as we're putting it out there, basically their portion that they're paying for the streets would continue to remain steady,
the same,
basically, for the next, how long would these bonds be? Or
Well,
the
what we're talking about here is a permanent rate increase.
permanent rate increase,
Right.
so that would, giving an ongoing dedicated source
No,
going
we're not putting
forward.
out bonds for this issue at all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, I was talking about the.
Right, and that's an important distinction that it always gets lost in this conversation. The beauty of this solution is, we would not be floating bonds, paying interest on bonds, paying
Bond
a
counsel.
corporate bond counsel. It would be basically a pay-as-you-go approach. And we would be taking the money that right now our taxpayers are paying to pay off these debts, these bonds, and all these fees on top of that. We would be taking that revenue that would normally go to pay the bonds, that would go directly into the capital expense, along with the 1.5 or so million dollars per year the general fund could generate. So it would be a true pay-as-you-go program and not funding other.
And we, I think you mentioned, we talked to Riverside about this. I mean, Hancock Engineering and Storino Mellon Durkin helped us with this, that, Riverside was funding their street improvements by selling bonds for years, each year to sell bonds, and they came to realize that it might be appropriate to ask the voters for it. There was an actual increase because they didn't have, I mean, they weren't coming off a referendum, but they were selling bonds, and so they went through this mechanism to increase the rate, and now they don't have to pay the bond interest and the bond counsel and things, and the voters there approved it. So it's kind of an analogous situation, what we're asking to do.
So then, just to clarify in my own head, this is then more of a permanent change to fund the street improvement projects perpetually so that we're not coming back every 5 years asking for another referendum for streets again.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have information or data on peer comparison in terms of, like, is 20 to 25 years the norm and how municipalities are addressing it? Because I want to be clear, we do have budget to maintain streets independent of this approach, right? So this supplements that existing budget. How do we settle on that?
I let Derek, I think you just set up Derek. Derek's been dying to talk about this because Hancock Engineering's been with us for years and they've guided us through a lot of this, but Derek can explain to you what having no street program or going with the $2 million that we do versus what we would happen. And he's been very frank with us, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, so paving programs, asphalt streets, 20 to 25 years is an industry standard, but you asked a different question. What are other municipalities doing? I don't know what all of them are doing. My feeling is they're not keeping up with the 20-year paving programs out there. And just a little data for what we've done is Brookfield, as President Garvey referenced, prior to 2003, there really was a minimal street improvement program. From 2003 to 2015, we were improving 0.82 miles. Let's put that in perspective. We have 40 miles of residential streets that we maintain. That's not including our collector routes. We're going to be on a 20-year program. Target would be about 2 miles a year. We were doing 0.82, well behind. In 16, we recognized that. We were doing street surveys about every 5 years, and that's when the board took the action, so we need to catch up. So we sold $22 million in bonds, 3 separate bond issues, and for the 6 years that the bond issue was in effect, we were doing 2.65 miles of street. So we're catching up, and they were big. They were like $5 million street projects for 6 years in a row. And then we looked at, and what we came to Tim and Doug with is we looked at what we did from 22 to 2025. We know it reduced after the bond issue. Well, it's down to 0.83 miles per year. So again, we can talk the cost, but really, we're trying to get up to about 2 miles per year if we're gonna do a 20-year street program. What we're averaging, pre-referendum and post, is like they said, a 50-year street improvement program. And that just is, in one year when we do 0.8, that would probably no noticeable difference, but over time, it's just not sustainable. And that's why we approached them to see if, would the residents approve, basically not an increase to their taxes, they're approving not taking the decrease that was discussed back in 2016.
Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah, thank you.
Doug, I sort of interrupted your presentation, but I wasn't sure you might have planned to go back to that, but I thought it was very important to explain, while technically it's asking for an increase in the limiting rate, it would not actually increase the amount of money we as residents pay for street improvements going forward, or just keep it the same.
Right. So if you want to go to the next slide. That's it. This one here. So this is, as you see on that, on the bottom half of that, there's our 3 debt service levies. There's one in orange, and then there's a blank, non-highlighted one, and then there's another one in orange. But if you look at the rates over there on the far side, the ones in the, I guess that's red, the ones in the red show you actually what each individual rate is going to generate for the village of Brookfield. So right now, those 3 rates generate about $2.7 million. And that's kind of what we want to do, is we want to get anywhere from, I guess it'd be 1.5 million to 2.7 million, depending on how we do it, if we do a 25 or 20, and then go ahead and substitute those tax rates with a rate of above PTEL, which is what the referendum would be, to increase the limiting rate up to a percentage that would generate that additional 1.5 to 2.7 million dollars. And right there, this next slide here, it shows where we're at as far as tax levies and principal payments. So this is a total, so it combines all 3 debt service issues, the 2016, 2018, and 2020, and it shows as they start to fall off. So right now, in 2025, our tax levy for 2025 will include a levy for 2.6 million, and then the 2016 drop off entirely, and then we're just taxing for 2018 and 2020. Those bonds would be 1.6 million, 1.7 million, and then the last one is going to be the final year of the 2020 bonds, which is 743. So we're kind of looking at moving forward with a referendum where we can still capture that availability of the tax levy rate, so that we don't have to, if we go forward with this program, the referendum would keep the tax rate steady for the residents and not show a significant increase in their tax bill. So that's kind of where we're at on that one.
Doug, the timing of this, because, I mean, the rates, the 3 sets of bonds are going to come off staggered 2 years in a row, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. I mean, if a referendum passed prior to the 2020 ones coming off, how would that work? I mean, would they, because I guess we're looking at this as a way to replace the bond issuance revenue
Right.
to do streets, but if the timing of this, if a referendum passed,
So if we go to fall referendum, fall of '26, we could capture the growth or the increment that comes in through the 2018 and 2020 bonds, which is that 1.6, $1.7 million. And that would survive a 25-year road program.
okay.
If we do a 20-year road program, we'll have missed that one for the 2016 bonds, and our rate will go up, or sorry, the tax rate will go down, but then it will jump back up again to accomplish that once we do, if the referendum were to pass for the full 2.7 million. If we just do the 25-year road program, those numbers will remain constant.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
I
know it's kind of confusing.
No, I think I understand. I guess I'm trying to figure out the timing of, I mean, we're telling the residents that their tax bills would stay the same, but if we passed a referendum in the fall,
Right. This is Andrew Kim. He actually
Yes.
is our financial advisor from PMA. It looks like he wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Sure, one approach you could do is, in 2026, for the 2026 levy, impose the full $2.7 million to increase the limiting rate. And at that point, to your point, you would have an additional $2.7 million of PTEL dollars, plus the $1.6 million that you're still paying on the bonds. And so it would be this punitive kind of impact onto the tax base. Well, what you can do then is with the $2.7 million that's coming in, use $1.6 million of that to
pay
pay the
off.
bonds, and then abate the bond and interest levy.
Okay. And I guess that was my point or concern, to be transparent to the residents, because if we're selling to them to the fact that this would not increase their tax bill, it would keep it the same. If we got a referendum in '26 and it prevailed, we'd have both the increased rate revenue as well as the previous referendum bonds
Yes.
that we'd be paying for. So I'm glad there's a mechanism, and I think the board would have to consider that, out of fairness, abating.
And then
That-
you would abate all of the other bond and
Right.
interest levies until the bonds completely roll off.
Okay.
That
That-
would have to be part of the communication to the public, which could be a little bit nuanced, but
Do you understand? I guess that was my concern. I just want to make sure the board knows why I asked the question, so. Okay, thank you, Andrew. And Derek?
I'd like to make a point while we have this slide. So typically, when we're financing annual maintenance, we prefer not to go to bond because of the interest charges out there. Annual maintenance is a recurring charge, so we try to have that in your tax rate. When you talk about a large expenditure, like we're looking at for the rec center, of course, there's no $25 million. That's going to be a bond issue. But I just want to make sure, and I think everyone sees it, but, so we did $22 million in principal, and it looks like, 4.1 in interest. That's the strong reason we're trying to encourage not going to bond for street improvements. That's like 20% additional street improvements we could do with that money. We didn't have a choice in 16, we had to play catch-up. That's why we're here now proposing that this be part of just the tax base.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, Doug, I interrupted you again, so.
So I guess that's really what I have to say for the road program rate increase, unless there's any other questions from the board on this.
Okay.
So then the other thing I wanted to talk about, and Andrew Kim, he actually worked with the Village of LaGrange when they passed their referendum for their most recent Park District referendum. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is financing the Brookfield Community Center. So as previously discussed, the estimated cost of a new community center was $25 million. This would not be a rate increase. This would be a pure debt referendum, similar to what we did with the previous road program. We would bond out for $25 million. We would ask the voters for that. We would be looking at a 20-year payoff schedule. The estimated cost, Andrew used a 5.33% interest rate or assumed rate. The estimated interest cost on that would be $17.5 million over 20 years, and versus it's a $25 million bond issue. So this one's pretty straightforward as far as what we'd be looking at to fund the community center. And that would be $25 million bond referendum, and that would be, the costs are associated there. If you turn the page, there it is right there. The last page there shows the average cost per house for this issue. For a $300,000 home would be about $350 a year.
This is for 2027 referendum. Does this account for?
Yeah, we would do the referendum separately. That would be the advice. So we'd do the first one would
Right.
be the road referendum, and then we would look at doing the community center referendum.
Okay, and it's estimated that 25 million accounts for increases, didn't they, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they say that it would increase if we would be?
$27 million, I believe, by 2027.
Right.
So we can look at those numbers again, but right now we were just using the estimate that we had been given, which was the 25 million.
I'm sorry, questions or comments related, I mean, Doug, we talked about the streets, and then Doug put out the different different mechanism for the Parks and Rec Center, because there was obviously clear support and desire from the board to pursue the rec center. And I think that, the feasibility study and the survey of residents actually talked about how many people would be willing to pay an increase on their taxes for it, and there was support of that. Yeah, obviously, the challenge we face is you're talking about going to the voters twice and asking for money for streets and for a Parks and Recreation Center, and that's why we're here, and that's why we get paid the big bucks to talk about this and figure out the timing and the likelihood of success and everything. I applaud the board for, as Tim talked about, the feasibility study had to happen first, because if we just threw out a general number or a general size of something, I feel the board is pretty confident that we have a proposed rec center that has had a lot of public input and board input that is desirable. Now, can we afford it, and how would we afford it going forward? And the same thing on the streets. I mean, the boards over the past, 10 years have gotten us to the point where the streets are maintained to a certain level, replaced, and now we're looking at the next generation to make sure those streets are taken care of. So the board has also done a great job on that, just trying to balance the two together going forward. And I, as I like to do, like to cause problems and threw a wrinkle into this with staff. I know there's voter support. We've gotten voter support in the past for streets. It happened, they trusted the board to do that, and they gave us a $22 million referendum question to do that. And I think I'd like to remind people, that was at about the same time that they were facing other referendum questions. District 95 and District 208 had referendums on the north side about the same time, and so the residents actually approved several hits to their property tax bills. But those things passed because I think it was explained what they were for, and people thought there was a priority. I think that same argument could apply to a Parks and Recreation Center, because I think there is a desire for it. The numbers might seem a little daunting to people, but I know people I think there's a large percentage of people that want a Parks and Recreation Center and think it would be a tremendous asset. When we face these, we oftentimes, I know we all hear this, well, LaGrange Park has a rec center, this town has a rec center, why don't we have a rec center? One of the main distinguishing factors is we don't have a park district. I mean, all the money that we use for Parks and Recreation comes out of our general fund, and as Doug explained, we're limited to, our tax levy is 45% of all the money we spend, and it's capped by the PTEL law, so 45% of our total revenue is capped, and we have to pay for police, fire, pensions, and all those things out of that. So to fund Parks and Recreation, I think we've done an unbelievable job over the years, and especially in recent years, upping programs and upping services by increasing programs, services, becoming more efficient. We're offering more programs and services and activities more than ever before, but we're still doing it with money out of the general fund. And I think I've had people say, wow, the Brookfield Park District is doing a great job with these new things. We don't have a park district. It's all out of the general fund. So for years, it's kind of been talked about quietly, would there be support for a park district? And quite honestly, what a park district would do, it would have to be created by a referendum. The voters would have to petition and ask for a park district to be created. They'd have to define its boundaries. It would have to have a separately elected board. And then they would have the authority to levy money to provide park district services, whether it be a facility or facilities, or to acquire land for parks and recreation activities. So I asked staff to just investigate, the mechanisms for creating a park district, and that's not something the board wouldn't create the park district. It would have to be a referendum questions put on the ballot. Should the village of Brookfield create a Brookfield Park District? And should they have a separately elected board? I don't know if it's a 5-member or 7-member board, or
It wouldn't be the village creating the board.
No,
It would be
no.
like it'd be a petition generated by an organization to set the boundaries and ask the county clerk to, the circuit court to put that on a referendum.
and create a board that would govern that park district at the same time.
Yes, the board of commissioners, I believe it's 7, I
Okay.
believe it is.
So if the voters came forward and asked that a park district be created, the Village of Brookfield Park District, just covering the Village of Brookfield, at the same time, they would ask that these 7 people be appointed to be the governing board, and if that passed, that board would have the authority to add a separate levy to to the property tax bill. So just to be clear, it would involve more funds. It would take away from our problem of us hitting our debt limit as a village trying to fund these services. But I wanted to throw that out there and see if there's any thought or interest from the board, if that's an alternative. And obviously, we can't do it ourselves, we wouldn't do it ourselves, but I wanted to throw that out. What it would do is the residents would still end up paying for a rec center, but it would be through a separate board, a separate park district. And I even asked about the scenario, because, I mean, the park districts that a lot of people are familiar with, when a park district is formed, they buy land and they install parks or they create parks. We know that there's no real available land for parks in the Village of Brookfield. There's no land from the Village of Brookfield currently owns basically all the park space, and I know we're somewhat below the state recommended ratio of park space for residents, but I floated the idea if that, let's say a referendum did happen, a park district was created, a board was elected, could the Village of Brookfield, because it's the same voters, same contiguous land area, could the Village of Brookfield hypothetically convey a piece of land to the newly created park district? Because it's the same taxing body. It might be a nominal amount that we'd have to sell it, or we might be able to just give it to a newly created park district. If there was hypothetically a piece of land that someone determined was feasible to build a rec center of a certain size and a certain design, could the Village of Brookfield, if that park district was created, then say, okay, you newly created park district, you don't need to go buy any land. If you're talking about buying a rec center and levying money to build a rec center, we could theoretically convey a piece of land to them, maybe a piece of land in Elhert Park.
President Garvey, can we confirm that they would be the same taxing body?
If it was the Village of Brookfield, and if we didn't create a Brookfield Riverside Park District or a Brookfield North Riverside, if it was just the Village of Brookfield residents, if the borders of the park district were the Village of Brookfield, the same people that would be paying for the park district levy would be paying for the Village of Brookfield levy. Am I correct on that?
But wouldn't they be 2 separate levies?
It'd be 2 separate taxing districts, yes. You'd have the Village of Brookfield and the Village of Brookfield Park District.
The voters would be the same.
That's what
taxpayers would be
that's
the
what I
same.
was meaning to say. is
But
that-
they would have 2 separate levies and 2 separate limitations, and it would be an additional taxing body.
Correct.
Not within our taxing body, but an additional taxing body.
Correct.
Thank you.
And if I wasn't clear on that part, but that's the point of a park district, is that it gives the additional, and like I said, when we have residents that ask for things and they say, well, why isn't the park district? We don't have a park district. If they would consider a park district, we might be able to do some of the things further than what we've done already without hindering our other projects and our other services. But they wouldn't necessarily, the new park district wouldn't necessarily have the ability or the need to take over all of the parks. We would still obviously need to have a Parks and Recreation Department that we would have to fund under our regular general fund to take care of other parks and other things, if the park district was just created initially to do a recreation center. That was the idea I floated, and I just wanted to put it out there, so.
I appreciate the due diligence, there we go, Kyle. These are obviously significant costs, and I think we should be exploring every option. I'm not hearing, just based on what I know so far, in terms of the goal of building the community center, that it could be done, faster or cheaper under a park district route, right? So, I think staff has brought us what could be a feasible plan for funding it under the current structure, right? Or is there, are we aware of a benefit in terms of building the center that would come if the village were to, not the village, but the tax base were to come forward and establish a park district?
Or a benefit in operating. I remember way back when I was commissioner, I think I asked why do we have a park district versus a Parks and Rec department? And at the time, I don't remember what the reasons were, but it made sense to me. I know it made sense to me. So I guess I'm curious, is there a reason to do it this way? number one, or to do the center? Or is it easier, are there implications for efficiencies in operating community center through a park district versus a village?
Guess that's something that staff, we haven't gone beyond the initial conversation or things, I guess the comparison of how a park district would work and what it would allow to do in terms of, there's two different questions, I guess Trustee White, you asked about, the timing and the cost efficiency, and I think those are things that need to be investigated, because if they had their own levy and they could sell, they would still sell bonds, and I guess there would be bond service issues, but would that be different than what the village would pay or what they could do and the amounts and stuff? So if, as I pointed out previously, if we went the initial route of trying to pass two referendums, the street one would probably have to go first because of the expiring bond issue, and then trying to pass a second referendum. I don't know if that affects the likelihood of that one passing if the Village of Brookfield come back again and ask for that. So I think that plays into it a little bit in terms of the timing. But it also, if both of them passes, I mean, we're kind of maxing out, and I always talked about if some other need or project comes up, the village would be at their maximum debt limit if we were financing streets and if we were financing a recreation center under the Village of Brookfield umbrella. Whereas the way I looked at it is if there was a park district, and if the voters chose it openly, chose it, that would free up the potential down the road if there were other obligations or other capital needs or other things the village, our bonding capacity. If they both pass streets and rec center, that we'd be kind of maxed out for decades to come, basically.
But we're not asking for new obligations for the road program, right? So that wouldn't go towards our max.
That's true. I mean, I guess the bonding for the, and seeing how much the referendum, the interest on the recreation center bonds, I just wanted to throw it out there if it's something the board wants staff to investigate, more and get some feasibility. And I think, Andrew could maybe speak to this. I don't know, I'm gonna put him on the spot tonight because this wasn't necessarily the topic for tonight, but
if that referendum for the roads doesn't pass, then we're probably gonna have to come back to you and say, we need
to sell bonds.
We need to sell bonds. And to your point, Trustee Naramatsu, and I think to maybe Trustee Whitehead as well, the reality is, we have a lot, as a village municipal, parks are a priority, but we also always have other priorities as well. We've got police, fire, and all the departments of the village. The taxpayers of Brookfield have a benefit of having a park department in terms of they don't have to pay the overhead, they don't pay the expenses of a park district. That's the advantage. The disadvantage, as President Garvey said at his beginning comments, do we have the amenities that a park district would have? Do we have a rec center? No. A pool? No. Whatever else, other communities have, we don't have that. And it's very challenging for us to get there because of the reason park districts around here, in most parts of the country, most cities have park departments. In Chicago, in Illinois, we have more units of local government than any other state by far. Well, why is that? I think it's because of this type of discussion that communities, we're a younger community, we're hopefully have an exciting, future, and so people want amenities that a municipal government, because we're not home rule, because we're subject to tax caps, we have all of these limitations put upon us, yet we still have operations to run. So what loses? Well, we can't do the shiny new toy. We can't do a rec center. We can't do a pool or anything else. So that's why these layers of government perhaps have been formed. So good luck with this.
Here, just kind of putting it all in perspective. So if we go for the limit increase, that would be a pay-as-you-go for the road programs. That does not issue any new debt for that. At the same time, we have the bond debt that's rolling off. Okay. If we look at the rec center in that scenario, and we had $25 million in debt, it seems what your memo is saying that we would be within our debt margin with that 25 million for the village.
Yeah, I think right now our legal debt limit is probably around $37 million. And as these the only bonds that apply to that are the road bonds, so they're gonna roll
So
off.
that's rolling off.
And so then if we get the referendum, then that $25 million will apply. We'll still have room, probably about, what, $11-12 million.
Okay. So then if the rate increase doesn't go through, as Tim was just mentioning, we're looking at some other source of the, funding the road program, whether that, if we were to issue bonds for that, we'd still be going out for a referendum for that as well.
Relying on the Park District potential route seems to introduce a lot of uncertainty in terms of building the center, right? Because an independent body would need to come forward to establish the Park District, and then voters would have to decide to do that. The governing board would have to come together. We've already talked about how the cost of construction and building something like this is gonna continue to rise year to year. So I would be concerned about extending the timeline to when we could break ground and then the financial impact at that time, as well as the increasing gap between when we finish the center study and when we actually start building the center, and then when the center is open to residents, right? I think we talked about wanting to try to leverage the momentum and support that we have right now coming out of the study process. And just one note, I know members of this board understand this. I do think it's important that we refer to it as a community center and think about all of the potential indoor activities. Right now, we have preschool and before and after school care in the basement of this building, and I think we all know the challenges that come with that, right? I think it really is, this center could be a front door for the village, not just for kids to play sports, but for indoor meeting space, for teens to hang out safely and comfortably after school, for senior activities, which we all want to do more of. So I think when people hear rec center, they think of a basketball court for third graders, and this is potentially so much more than that. And I think a lot of other villages have other indoor space where those types of activities that can happen, and we don't have that, and this building is not sufficient. So I think it's just important to continue to talk about the community center in that context.
That's, I apologize for calling it a rec center. It is a community center, and you're right, and I think that's an important distinction, so.
Can I add on to that just real quick too? If there was a new parks board, they also don't have to go with the plan that we've spent all this time on. They could start over if they chose, and that would be their decision to do that. So that could introduce another delay and cost.
That is 100% correct, and to Trustee Whitehead's point, it would take a group of citizens to come, I think, how many signatures are needed to get it on the ballot?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I thought I heard a figure of 100 signatures or something. Okay, hypothetically, if it was 100 signatures to get the referendum question on the ballot to create a park district, I would submit that if 100 people aren't willing to sign a petition to get something on the ballot, the chances of passing a community center referendum might be somewhat challenging. That's why I guess I wanted to look into it more to see if if it is, and then the timing of it, if you can't get 100 signatures to get something on the ballot to create it, and then the possibility, if a newly elected community park district board chose to do a completely different building and different thing, they're elected by the residents. If that's the route they chose, that's their duty and parameter to decide if that's the way they want to go. So yes, I guess that could happen. If we also have the issue of whether or not we convey the property to the, if there was a new created park district, with the piece of land would go to them. If they want to reinvent the wheel and do the new feasibility study, if that's what the voters who elected them wanted them to do, I guess they would have to do that. I don't know how likely that is, but I guess you bring up the possibility that could happen. In terms of the timing of it, how fast all this could happen, I mean, if I'm reading staff's recommendations correctly, it's to, pass the limiting rate referendum first, and then at a subsequent referendum, then ask for the creation, or the park funding. Is that correct? So,
And you mentioned, no, fall of 2026. Was that a recommendation, or was that?
Yeah, so I was just trying to find it. Yeah, it would be in the fall of '26
for which one?
for the road.
For the roads.
And then we're looking at either the spring or the fall of '27.
So there's an election November 3rd, it's in your packet, 2026. The next election after that is April 6th of 2027. The one after that, March 21st of 2028.
So it couldn't be ready for March 2026, the road referendum.
That's only, just because of the time frame. I mean,
It's too close.
We're tying it to 26 is the last time that the road referendum funds stay on there, so that's why we're aiming for that. But
Spring
that's the
versus,
last payment.
spring versus fall is what we're talking about. Could we potentially go to the ballot in the spring of '26?
I mean, I think the people are circulating petitions now for the March ballot and that's a primary election. And I mean, again, I think we're getting a little bit into it, but the likelihood of some of these things passing, you want the primary elections in Illinois and Cook County where turnout might be lower than the general election in November of '26. But no, I guess it would be very, very difficult. I don't think getting it on the March ballot is possible,
I mean, Andrew had mentioned previously that there are referendum specialists out there, consultants that could kind of guide us through this and make some suggestions if we kind of looked into doing that. That's up to you guys. If you're ready to move forward with referendum, I mean, that's another possibility.
I guess I'm just curious whether we can table the discussion on the community center referendum while we wait out to see how this goes.
Of course, yeah, the community center is, there's no
Right.
timetable. We don't have one now, and, it's up to the board.
But I'm sorry, Trustee Newman, you were suggesting tabling the Parks and Recreation Center while we figure out the streets and then,
Well, waiting until after the 2026, we go out for referendum and the road program.
You're saying if we did it in March, you'd have more time to know if that passed, to then be preparing
Right.
for the following March,
For
April.
2027.
Is that, is this even, to do this in March, I mean, there's this paperwork that needs to be done.
Yes, there's gonna be an ordinance that's gonna have to be passed. It's gotta be passed a certain amount of days before the election. I think you're technically within that time frame right now. So is it possible or feasible is a different discussion. So I think you're looking at the November 2026 election for any referendum.
Are we being asked, to Trustee Naramatsu's question, is staff recommendation that we determine, I mean, we wouldn't be written in stone, but commit to a 2027 timing for the community center or not at this time? Or to Trustee Naramatsu's point, could we have that conversation at a future date in '26? Or is it more advantageous for us to try to commit to an initial timeline for the referendum, community center referendum now, even though that's 2 years out?
I mean, the further you can identify and commit to a referendum date, you use that time for education to the
Mhm.
community. If you wait until the results of the fall 2026 bond schedule, you're losing all of that time. If it passes and you still intend spring of '27, you just shrink your window of education and engagement with the community.
and as Doug pointed out, I think there's a benefit to, and we haven't, this is kind of moving somewhat rapidly. I don't think we've anticipated it, but talking, there are people, as Doug indicated, that help consult with us in terms of the likelihood and the timing of referendums, and if you have, and the more information you could give them about what you might be looking for next, there might be professional recommendations about what is the best time to go forward, what is the best likelihood of, something succeeding if you're planning 2 in a row, that type of thing. Those are all things to talk to about consultant, and if that's the board's direction, I think we have references for people going forward to do that. So I don't know that we have to decide tonight that we're only gonna ask for streets, and we're gonna put rec center on, our community center on hold or any of that, but I mean, it can be the direction from the board. Can we get some more input or advice on what would be the timing? If the board is leaning towards doing both a street program and a community center program through a referendum, then maybe there should be some further consultation with people that specialize in this area.
And I imagine we could set the goals of having those referenda, and if the first roads one fails, we could always pivot, right? It's not set in stone.
Yep, I just want to say I appreciate all the staff time that's gone and everybody's time that's gone into this. On the last conversation, it sounded like we had to pick roads or community center, and it sounds like there's a potential path to be doing both, and so I just wanted to say I appreciate the due diligence in figuring that out, because I know both are important, and both are interesting, and it sounds like it still doesn't quite put us at our limit, which was making me uncomfortable, so that there's still a little bit of room if another project came up that we needed to do. Thank you for putting this all together. I'm feeling better about it than I was several weeks ago, and I was talking loudly, and I apologize.
I'd agree with all that, though keep in mind with the road program, what I think we're trying to take advantage of is the bonds rolling off.
Yep.
And then we can, sell to the residents that your taxes aren't going to go up from this. So we don't want to be talking about the street program 5 years from now, where the taxes all went down, and now they're gonna go up some years later. So there is a timing issue with that.
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly well stated, that there is a time issue there to do exactly what you're talking about. The community center, as Trustee Hendricks said, we could pivot depending on what happens with that first referendum.
Yes, good point, Trustee Ketchmark. And also, we could educate residents about the cost savings of doing the pay-as-you-go as opposed to going out with bonds. So not only will your tax bill not go up, but if this were to fail and we had to pursue other routes, we would be on the hook for more money because of we're paying those debt payments, right?
I think that's a big reason it's successful in Riverside. I think they did a very good job there.
The efficiency of it is, it should be appealing, yeah.
Okay.
If we were to go for the referendum for the community center, I would want to make absolutely sure that we include that escalation, the inflation in there, because I feel like otherwise we could be setting ourselves up for failure, promising this rec center that everyone has seen in the beautiful video, and then not being able to deliver on what they have asked for.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the $27 million figure should be used more than the $25 million figure, because if I remember correctly, the escalation clause, I mean, that was the feasibility study when we were talking about it that night, but by 2027, I may be wrong, I was thinking 27 million.
I don't know the exact amount, but I think it needs to be in there.
Agreed.
Okay, so what's the direction from do we want to have staff talk to consultants about advice in terms of timing and process and likelihood and everything else like that? And we can bring this back as quickly as possible, as quickly as needed, basically. That,
do we need that, or do we know that we're gonna go out in 2020? Is that just for the community center referendum then? Because we,
No, I think they interrelate to each other. I mean, if the board is contemplating two separate referendum questions, I think some professional advice based on experience of passing, or, you know, educating people on referendum questions and putting them out there, what is the best way to deal with? We wouldn't just, I don't think it would be appropriate to go to consultants, say, give us advice on, you know, when's the best timing to educate people on a streets referendum, and not mention that we might be looking forward for a community center referendum. I think they need full disclosure and talk about, again, we can't advocate for passing a, you know, that type of thing, but we can talk about the time period to educate and the likelihood of people, you know, understanding the education and taking the appropriate steps.
okay. I guess I was just thought it was, we were confident that we would probably be going out for the road program in November of next year. And then the question would be then, when would we go out? If and when would we go out for?
And that's what we think, but there's a whole discipline out there of people who do this for a living who aren't us. You know, and how do you, to President Garvey's point, well, how would it be perceived if we did a referendum in November for the roads without mentioning the fact that is it a good thing or a bad thing to mention a potential community center referendum? I don't know. And then what type of elections give you the best precursor to success? Is it a primary? Is it a general election? Do you know, high voter turnout, low vote? There's a whole, it's like a political consultant. I mean, there's people out there that do this, and you're not looking at any of them in this. Well, maybe Andrew is, but nobody here is. And I don't know how to answer those questions.
And so then we're tabling the Park District conversation. Is that correct, or is that still part of this?
The Park District conversation?
Seems like we're, yeah.
Tabling that.
that,
And
yeah.
we, not even tabling, we're not
Not
really
really
having,
discussing.
I mean, that's
Okay,
not up
just-
to us,
just
right?
making sure.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
That's-
We couldn't even decide that.
I mean, as a resident, I think that it's a bag of,
Well, I
a
mean,
can of
the
worms that we don't even want to get into,
There are
but.
implications, though,
Sure,
on our decisions if we were gonna.
sure, but I think that we're talking about whether or not we go forward with this plan,
Right.
rather than waiting for somebody else to do it.
Right, I know. I'm just, it was brought up, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something we were thinking there might be implications for in future.
And to Stevie's earlier point, it does seem like we could take advantage of the time, if we determined it was feasible, to continue to educate people and build support on the community center referendum side. And, you know, we're not, the community center is not something that's popping back up in '27, but people are expecting and building towards that over the next, you know, couple of years.
Is that direction, and then just the timing, we're all be waiting to hear when we can bring it back and stuff, so.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Doug, thank you, and thank you to everyone that was involved in this. Andrew, thank you very much for all your time on this also. It's been a lot of work, and there's a lot of work to go, but thank you for all the work, so. Okay, the next item up for discussion is a discussion concerning locations for electrical vehicle chargers at Village Hall and Elhert Park. Again, detailed memo from Libby. I'll turn it over to Libby just so we can get right into this.
No. Yeah, that should be saved in there. As you know, that we did receive the Driving Cleaner Illinois grant, and as part of that, we've been working with White and Company to establish where the different locations would be between Village Hall and Elhert Park. Those are the two that were picked. So we have Sean Benson here from White and Company to talk about the two locations, one at Village Hall, which is at the front of the parking lot or at the back, and staff's recommendation is for the EV chargers in the back, and then also Elhert Park in the parking lot or right next to the station, or right next to the fire station. I don't,
Well, so why don't we just talk about the options? The options are to
and we
put,
can have Sean, yeah.
are to put 4 charging stations at Village Hall. I know White had recommended something that I wasn't really particularly fond of, and that's tying up 8 parking spots in front of Village Hall along the creek for 4 charging stations, and then have 4 in the back of the commuter station, the commuter parking lot behind this building, put 4 there, and then I believe put 8 at Elhert Park. My concern is, I don't like the idea personally of putting 4 in front of, these spots are kind of premium. On a typical day in the summer, our parking lot's full. And that EV, I'm no expert on this, but I see often in shopping centers, those EV parking spaces are generally empty, but they're reserved for EV parking. So I guess my concern is tying up 8 parking spots here in front of Village Hall might be concerned. I think putting them all back at the commuter lot makes a lot of sense, because if people are gonna be parked there all day to go, to work, they can be charged that whole day, and then the 8 at Elhert Park seems to make sense as well. And I'm sorry, we don't have we had this all on maps and laid out, but we just didn't get it.
Yeah, White and Company had a presentation.
We have it, yeah.
We have in our packet.
So we do have Sean Benson here to answer any question.
Yeah, and
the
I
pros
mean,
and
you've
the
been sitting here
cons.
all night. If you'd like to come up, I appreciate you being here tonight and going through the conversations. And we do, in our packet, just to be clear, we do have your drawings, your maps and proposed locations and things. So if there's anything, I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything or just open up to board questions about the various options.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm Sean Benson. I'm helping manage this project for the village. And yeah, there's a couple things that White did. So one, we also looked at feasibility for providing the electrical service at each location. So if you start with the Village Hall, we did confirm that the Village Hall existing service can provide the required power for the 4 dual chargers. And yeah, we looked at 2 locations, the north lot and the south lot. And again, some of the thought for the south lot, that's actually a closer location to the existing service, so there is some cost savings having it closer to that existing service. It could be used, if it's mainly thought is to use those chargers for visitors to the Village Hall to charge, or those are also closer to the metro stop, so that was just some of the thought behind that. I do like the idea of the north, so the north side is a little further away, so there is a little bit of an additional cost. But that is a nice central location for parkers. I know the Metro users use that lot, but also could be used by people using the park area and some of those recreational uses. So that's some of the benefits of that side at Village Hall.
So do we want to talk about these individually? I mean, Village Hall versus, I mean, board want to chime in on the thoughts of the Village Hall locations?
Do we have ideas of how long people would be allowed to be in these spaces? Is there some sort of limit? Can they be there all day?
So I believe the village is gonna operate them, you're gonna charge for.
Right, the plan
Use,
was to
correct?
charge for the use. And it was not, the plan was not for them to leave the cars there all day.
Is there some, do we have some sort of plan to have signage that says that you can't park here for 8 hours? You have a certain time
Right.
limitation? Okay,
We would have to have the signage there.
right.
With
And
the
so that
limitations.
we are operating them and charging as the village rather than some outside entity? Okay. I like the idea of having them in the front of the Village Hall parking because it's so much closer to the business district. I feel like people who do drive EVs are willing to walk just a little bit further. They would potentially use these spaces, and it would be a kind of a draw for the business district. But I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say.
I had a question about them being in the commuter lot and like people having to pay to park there to then take the metro, but then they can't park there all day? Like,
They can.
so they can pay to park and charge their car all day? They just can't park overnight?
Right, and it can be designed any which way that the board decides if they want to park there all day or for a particular limit, the signage will match what the
I think the
decision
spots
is.
in front aren't commuter spaces, and so you can't park in front and then go get on the Metro. You have to park in the rear. If people were coming from their house or somewhere else to go take the train and want to charge their car, it makes sense for them to be at number 2 or at the other. I mean, honestly, in my mind, I would think it'd make more sense for them to be closer to the police station cars, like at the front end of the lot versus the all the way back end of the lot, because you're not really giving. So I'm curious the placement in the lot of like people having to walk the furthest to their car to if they're charging it versus.
Why did you choose the far north then? Was that close proximity to electric source or?
No, that's actually the furthest, so I think flexibility, moving them south does make a little sense. I think that location you're referring to in that north lot, there's also some accessible spots at that south spot, so it does, that could be an easy.
Yeah.
Did you look along Brookfield Avenue, just across the street, which is commuter parking? So it'd be just to the south of where you show these 4 right outside here in Village Hall? Did you look at? So
Like along the metro tracks?
We own all the spots right on the train tracks that are commuter parking.
So we were, I mean, I guess our directive was that it was the lot at the Village Hall, so no, we didn't look anywhere else. And I think it has to be that specific address, so no, we did not look in the right of way and any options at this time.
Yeah, the grant is for Village Hall, but since that is so close by, I don't know if that would qualify. It could, since it's right next to Village Hall, it's village owned.
Again, this isn't my area, so, I mean, I think that idea is interesting, Brookfield Avenue right across, but if the limits of the grant's prevented because it's not the Village Hall itself, but is that worth looking into, or? How long does it typically take to charge a car? I mean, how long is someone going to be in one of these spots to charge a car?
Depends on the charger, I don't.
Okay.
Those commercial chargers are different. I mean, mine charges
These are
overnight
type, do
easily.
you remember what type 2?
Level 2, I think.
I did not ask my electrical, yeah, I mean, typically there's like this type, it's not the slowest, it's like middle of the road, so yeah, I would think a few hours, 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours.
If you wanted to get to maximum capacity. Right,
So-
I mean,
Yeah, I
But
would be
most-
concerned about, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I would be concerned about using these for commuter parking. That, for me, that's not the best use of them. The best use for me would be if somebody wants to come to the park or to a baseball game, they can charge their car while they're there. Or it's a draw, like I said, for the business district, great. While I'm going to Sebastian's to watch this game, I can charge my car just down the street. I feel like using it all day long for commuter parking is potentially tying it up longer than it needs to be tied up as well. So I lean more toward having it time-limited spaces toward the front of the lot.
And one of my concerns about, honestly, with the front is, the farmer's market in that space, I mean, basically completely unavailable on Saturdays, which, if the farmer's market continues to happen in the parking lot, a Saturday being completely out for having use of those from June through the end of October was, when I first saw that location, I just pictured what the parking lot looks like that. And then to Tim's point, during the day, I mean, on a typical day, all those spots are filled when the Village Hall is open, and I assume most of those people are either employees or people using the Village Hall or using some of the programs in the Village Hall or some of the camps and things, and if those spots weren't available,
If they build a rec center, they will.
no, that's,
Well, one day they might all be driving electric vehicles, and
That-
so then they'll have a place to park them.
yeah.
Do all 8 have to be next to each other, or can they be 2 of the dual chargers in one location and 2 of the dual chargers in another location?
They can be separated, they don't all have to be. There's just a cost
Yeah, there's
element
probably,
to it.
yeah, there's some efficiency running all the infrastructure out to all 4, but yeah, you can put them wherever we want.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that? Is that the piece that ComEd keeps offering to cover, is the actual electrical portion? They said that it's
Through the
a-
ComEd rebate.
Yes.
I believe that it is,
And then that would be completely free to the village, it sounds like.
potentially, under that rebate, but that's kind of the next component of what we're looking into once we,
So that's what I'm only
Narrow
asking, because
down.
like, if they could cover both locations, is it creating efficiencies, or would they cover both under that rebate either way?
we can certainly look into that.
The third thought is, if there were, like, not having 8 spaces in the back or 8 spaces in the front, like you're saying, that takes up a large monopoly of space, if they could be separated, and maybe some of them could be along Brookfield Avenue, if that's feasible for the grant, and those are outside and a little bit more public, and two of the dual chargers are in the actual commuter lot, but then it's not taking up 8 spaces for the farmer's market or 8 spaces for commuters.
And if Brookfield Avenue is an option, I mean, to trustee Hendrick's point, it is, if you're right out here, you're a little bit closer to the business district, type thing, so. Is that something we could look into to see if,
We can ask the grant administrator as
Okay.
to if we'd be able to put it on Brookfield Avenue.
like, I think ideally, we're talking like directly out front, the first whatever spaces, and the idea of splitting them up, and if that wouldn't cause a huge cost increase, and I'm hearing that ComEd might help pay, but I know Libby's reluctant to commit that. It seems like there might be an additional cost to spreading the 8 among 2 or 3 different locations. We'd need to know what the likelihood of getting ComEd to cover that, as well as the feasibility of, can we put any on Brookfield Avenue?
I think trustee Hendricks makes a good point about proximity to downtown, and I just, the idea of shoving them in the back of the parking lot, it's almost like we're hiding them out there, where if it's an amenity we want to offer to residents, but especially visitors, I feel like they should be visible, and that also speaks to like wanting to cluster them, right? Because if you break them all apart, they're less noticeable. So I'm also interested in the front or the Brookfield Avenue option, if either of those are feasible. Most people are charging their vehicle at home overnight, right? So this is like a supplementary charge if you happen to be stopping in town. It's not, I'm gonna park here to go from 0 to 100% on my battery capacity. It's kind of an add-on.
I'd say that's a really good point, and a draw for our business community. Even as someone who charges at home overnight, I've been pretty far away from here and on a low battery, and it's pretty stressful when you don't know, in the various communities, and it's not obvious where to find them. Sure, you can go and find a map, but it's stressful. So if people knew, I'm low, but I'm going to Brookfield, gone around, go out to dinner, whatever, and I can charge here. That would be a huge benefit. And again, if it's all the way back here and you're going out to dinner in town, it's not like it's technically very far, but you know how it is. Everybody wants to park right in front.
I mean, if the business district is your main target, we're kind of confined to the village hall, but I don't know to be hiding them in the back. I mean, if on a Friday or Saturday night, when there's baseball and other activities going on, I mean, I can picture people whose kids are playing at Gav, want to get their car charged while they're watching a baseball game, or if they're at a concert in the park on a Friday night, they're there also. I think signage and advertising, again, I don't have an electric car. Someday I hope to, but it's like maybe word would spread. I would think in the community of electric car owners that people know, hey, this is where chargers are available, and we would clearly make it available that there's some in the back lot of the village hall. And if you're here for a concert, baseball game at either of the fields or any of the other events that we have, there's an opportunity to charge them back there. I don't know they'll be hiding it back there, so.
I mean, it's better than nothing, but I like the front as well, just ideally.
I just understand, sorry, I turned it off. I just understand that 8 spots in front or 8 spots in the back is just a lot of spots, and so that's why I'm asking if they can, even if there was 4 in front and 4 by the police station, or 4 on Brookfield Avenue and 4 in front, I'm just curious if they can be broken up.
Yeah, and my point is, if you're out here during day camp in the summer, there's a lot of people that come and go, and this lot in front is often full. And I'd hate to see, I don't know what the utilization of EV charging spaces are, but what I see when I go shopping and they've got them is they're generally empty. And I'd hate to see 8 spots, kind of like your prime real estate here for parking, tied up for something that's not being used on a daily basis, because the lot is being used on a daily basis.
I mean, what you have highlighted is kind of a big space, or I guess in my mind, I was thinking about the spots that are along the creek. Is that where, is that
That's where they're talking about.
like the, over there?
Right there, over there, right, yeah.
Not like here, but
I understand that.
The further.
The next
further
slide.
north-
Oh, sorry.
The
Next
further
slide.
north you go, it's more employees.
Got it, I see.
These really aren't employee spots, these are the south end of that creekside parking, that's public parking that does get utilized.
I got you, that's why I'm just saying, could it be 4 of those and not 8?
And I go back to, if the farmer's market, just say the farmer's market continues to be successful and continues to be in the Village Hall parking lot, you're gonna have you're gonna have X number of spaces unavailable every Saturday from June till, and then when the Kris Kringle Market and the other things that are going on, they'll be, the days that you might have people coming to town, they'll be unavailable.
I'll be curious to see what they say, if those spots along Brookfield Avenue would qualify.
So do we have time to
We'll
look
find
into
out.
that? Is there we gotta decide? do we need-
Well, I'll go back to ask the grant administrator if we could put them on Brookfield Avenue. We had asked before with some of the spots on Elhert, if we could move it. They were kind of adamant, like, those were picked. But this might be able to work
Okay.
because it's right in front of Village Hall, so it's technically
Could we
Village
come
Hall.
back in 2 weeks with it and still be okay?
Yes, I think we could.
Okay. So maybe just give the board all the possible options on that one, and then maybe move on to Elhert Park?
Yes?
All right, so we looked at, if you see your exhibit for Elhert Park, we looked at, there's 4 locations we're showing. Option 3 was eliminated because we did check with the grant administrator, and since that address doesn't match the address for the north side of Elhert Park, we cannot put them there, is my understanding, right? So option 1 and 2 at Elhert Park are basically in that main parking lot, and then option 4 is closer to the fire department. We did look at locations for getting existing service. The fire department does have service that could provide power for the 3 EV chargers, but option 1 and 2, because of the distance, we recommend a new service because of the cost of the getting that distance. I think it's around 750 feet, kind of cost prohibitive. So if we did option 1 or 2, that would be our recommendation. Option 4, which is closer to the fire department, would be feasible to use that existing fire department service. But those spots are kind of not in a central location. I think the fire department uses some of the majority of those spots over there, so there may be a few available, but it's kind of a little further away, not as central to the park.
Thoughts from the board?
So are you saying that spot 1 or 2 is the most feasible, but they would need new service?
They're all feasible, need a new service. I mean, there is, from a cost perspective, that's probably the best bet. There is new services now are about 16 to 24 weeks out, which I think we're still okay. I think we need to be done by June of 26, is that right?
I
Complete?
think it's October of '26.
Oh, is it October? Yeah, so we have some more time. So if that's not a limitation, there is a way to get service from the fire department to locations 1 and 2. There's just some cost involved. But if there's no time restraint, yeah, that would be our recommendation.
And the other 2 lots at Elhert are not options?
Which,
The main parking lot is the parking lot in the middle, that you're not listing an option.
And then there's also a secondary lot that I would say is the second most popular lot, behind the baseball field.
so these were with discussions that we had with the village. I mean, we could put them anywhere. I gotta check that address. Definitely need new service. So yeah, so anywhere besides location 4 needs a new service.
I guess I think trustee White is referring to the Congress Park lot, like
No, yeah, Elman Congress.
Elm and Congress Park. Is that the one you're?
Yes, yes.
Because so if you come in Elm to Congress Park, where Congress Park dead ends into the park, there's a parking lot right there that's basically in the center there. It's right next to the refreshment stand. It's near the basketball courts, tennis courts.
The playground, I mean, that's really the
Playground,
front-
baseball
that's the
fields.
front door of the park, yeah.
That's like, so is that site ruled out for a particular reason, or?
Needs a new service. I think we just need to check if that's the same address, then we have no issues. I would have no issues with it.
Right, if it's the same address, then it would qualify as Elhert Park. If it's not, then the grant administrator will have an issue with it. And then cost was the other factor, because the option 4 does not require new service. The others do. You can basically put it anywhere then. if
When
we're
you
gonna
say
have-
address, I mean, are we talking a street address for the park, or is there, what do you mean?
Well, there's the address for Village Hall that we used, and then I think we listed the address for Elhert Park. I'd have to look at the actual grant application, but it was specific to like the actual location.
Because I've had this issue in the past. I mean, there was an incident at Overhold Field one day, and a kid got hurt, and I called the fire department, and we got the dispatcher from somewhere else, and they said, well, what's the address of the park? And I'm not aware of an address for the park, and I gave them the address for the Village Hall, and they thought I was lying because they knew that was the Village Hall. So I guess I'm not trying to be funny. I didn't know there was an address. Clearly, the Congress Park parking lot is in the center of Elhert Park. It's village-owned, it's the park. I would hope that would fit the grant parameters, and,
Well,
go
I
ahead.
guess I have a couple questions, because we applied for like a couple of EV grants around the same time. Is this the one where, is this the grant where it was also like, it would provide additional charging for residents nearby also?
Not that I'm aware. This is the Driving a Cleaner Illinois one,
Okay.
so that does not.
So my only thought about spots 1 or 2 is that it is a little closer into the neighborhood, and if you put different restrictions on those, then maybe there are residents nearby that would choose to charge their car overnight there if they didn't have the ability to do that in their garage or nearby, versus the Congress Park and Elm site, which is,
I guess it goes to what your audience is, for who it is. I mean, this, as trustee Henning pointed out, that this isn't, you're not creating this to maybe business, no one's gonna park at Elhert Park and go to a business area, but the Shields lot, which proposed for sites 1 and 2, is obviously closer to the residential area, but I think, as trustee White had pointed out, that the Congress Park parking lot is the first choice parking if you have
unless you're
something.
playing pickleball.
Well,
Saying.
it's still right there.
She threw the pickleball and
You're right next to the pickleball
it's
court.
still pretty close.
I think it's just as close to so. But I mean, are you trying to target the people who might come to see their kids play at one of the fields or play at the playground or
The splash pad.
splash pad or any of that? So that might, but I guess we need to find out, is the Congress Park parking lot an option? So again, while we're looking at the other one, can we look at this and come back in 2 weeks?
Certainly. We
Would
can.
that help the board make a decision?
The main lot at Elhert seems to be the most logical location if that's feasible.
And you're clear, I mean, trustee White has heard, it's the Congress Park Elm parking
Mm-hmm.
lot, that main, it is the gate, I agree, it's the gateway to the park, so. You said it's the most popular, you said, what would you say was the second most popular?
I was talking about the lot behind the fire station, which is
Okay.
also the site of the potential community center, right? But those soccer, football fields in the back are very popular, and you could also park there for baseball. So that's kind of, to me, that's the secondary lot, and these other locations that are marked
Like
here.
the roundabout one?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the one coming, what is this street?
Sunny side.
Sunnyside.
So do you want to, is there a reason to consider that the lot kind of by the skate park and the
Yes.
rec center can we look into that too, Libby? Okay, and see if those are available options, and then if we can come back in 2 weeks, we can kind of make a decision? Sound fair?
Yeah, so I'll work with staff. If it's feasible, then we'll have to look at just impacts of getting service to those locations.
And
Yeah,
I-
we can get that answer in 2 weeks. That's
And
fine.
help that Luke Burrows is very eager to assist you, from ComEd. So trying to figure out what the service, like, what is it that they're actually offering to pay for? Is it new service? Is it just the electrical for the actual charger? So just figuring out what the ComEd grant rebate incentive situation is and what it isn't.
I know you haven't really looked at the Congress Park lot that Trustee White is talking about, but there's a concession stand and lights for the baseball fields are all in that immediate, I don't know if that helps or is a factor or not. I mean, I could picture a large electrical service on the back of the concession stand, and 2 of the fields right there have lights that I think come from that same area, so if that kind of, you almost have to go there and look at it and see, so.
Yeah, no, we'll get back out there, so we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right. Last but not least, consideration of a rental registration ordinance. This is something that's been in front of the EDC for an initial discussion back in April, and it was brought back in September. And Deanne's here tonight to talk about the recommendations from the EDC, and I'll just turn it over to you, so.
Thank
thanks.
you. So tonight I'm presenting a framework for rental property registration. The idea of the program would be to implement registration and for our rental properties in Brookfield. It would touch on public health and safety, which would be regular inspections, enforcement of standards, which is code compliance, and being proactive rather than reactive. And then the benefits of that is having good data on our property owners of rental properties. Sorry. Through CMAP, we learned we have approximately 1,500 rentals in Brookfield. It's a mix of single-family homes and then 2 to 4 unit and 5 to 9 unit buildings. There are other municipalities nearby that have a program. Riverside, as you see, they charge $15 a year. They have annual inspection of their common areas, and then random in-unit inspections every 3 years. Oak Park does it as well for properties with 4+ units. $20 per unit for registration, inspection every 2 years on their common areas, and minimum of 1 dwelling unit. And then North Riverside has their program for single and multifamily, $150 for 4 units, and then 5+ units are $250. We presented our program to the Economic Development Commission twice this year earlier, and then we vetted it out again at our last meeting. Their recommendation was they were supportive of the program, but they did not want us to implement fees or annual inspections. Staff recommends having the program with an administrative fee to recoup costs for having that by, having staff resources used for the program. We do want to implement inspections. We're thinking common areas annually, and then the in-unit inspections would be once every 3 years. New developments would be exempt from this after certificate of occupancy in 3 years. We feel that it's an opportunity to see our property owners here in town have good data. As I said, we would have good code enforcement, and then just maintaining good housing standards in Brookfield. Our goal is to implement the program if it's approved. The ordinance is approved January with an annual renewal in March. We do have enforcement of noncompliance. It would be a $100 fine if a property owner failed to register. And then persistent noncompliance obviously could go to administrative hearing, with fines up to $750 per ordinance. Sorry, I did not mean to do that. We're just asking for your support in implementing this ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I kind of zipped through that, sorry.
Thank you, Dan.
So if I could, as the liaison to EDC, we've had some lively discussions on a lot of different topics there. This may have been one of the liveliest, though, over the last, the two meetings where it was discussed. The commission had very little support for this, actually. And some of the comments were, they felt it was an additional tax, concerned about the tremendous burden on staff in terms of inspections. With 1,570 units, that's 1,570 yearly inspections for the common areas. And then, every 3 years, I'm not sure if we are doing 500 a year, for the inside inspections. Some of that was looked at as, Big Brother in terms of the inspections of the living quarters. This could lead to, the owners, hesitant to register or not registering, tenants not wanting to rent here because they're gonna have their living quarters inspected, and owners not wanting to locate here because they're going to have to go through the inspection process. After a long discussion with the EDC did agree with the point about the collection of the data, because it was pointed out in many instances, the village doesn't have actual information on who an owner is. So if there is a complaint or a citation that needs to be issued, the village didn't know exactly who that went to. So what was agreed upon was that we'd have yearly inspections that would collect that data, so we would have on record who is the contact the owner for anything going forward. And if there were complaints, part of that registration would be the village would be able to have access to the property upon a complaint from a tenant. So that's kind of where the support from the EDC came from, just agreeing with that portion of it.
Well, I agree that's a lot of inspections annually, so, but also that it costs money, so that I'm curious how they want the inspection to take place, but not charge a fee.
No inspection.
They don't want inspections at all?
The only part of this they
Just
agreed
data.
with was the registering to collect the data, so we have on file who is the contact, who is the owner, but not agreeing with the inspections, not agreeing with the fees.
But there would still be a fine if they failed to register, correct?
Yes.
Can you address the question
Yeah.
about how the staff would handle 1,500 inspections a year?
Well,
For the common space?
And how do those other towns do that?
I don't have an answer for you on that. I know that it's a proactive program where we would be ahead of code compliance, hopefully, and then, but I really.
I would assume it would be B&F. I mean, we don't have the village staff. I mean, we have
Right.
Jordan and inspect, but I assume we're trying to bill in the cost of having B&F do, as we do with other inspections. I think the board's well aware of what our staff is in that department, and Jordan wouldn't be able to do all those inspections, so I assume that's the case.
You're right, it probably have to be phased, just set districts. We sort of do that now for our current inspections. Would we get to 1,500 in a year? Doubtful, at least initially, but we would at least, we would start the program to include the inspections, and, we can always amend the program.
Well, 1,500 total, we said we do it every 3 years, so it's 500.
The common
Yeah.
areas annually, though.
Yeah.
But common areas, you're talking about like the lobbies, just
Right,
the
and the-
entryways, so
Always.
this is not an in-depth
common area.
inspection, it's,
Sure.
right? I would think you could do several in a day.
I recall, I'm definitely a proponent of the inspections, although I would be in favor of making them less often. I recall when this first came up a few years back, Trustee Cote and I were both very in favor of this because of the inspections, because there had just been a fire at that big apartment building over on Des Plaines Avenue, and the word was that it was in such bad shape that the village could have known had they been doing inspections. This could keep people safe. And I'm not sure that I'm comfortable going into people's apartments for those kinds of inspections, into people's living spaces, but the common areas, the stairwells, I would think that would be a good practice. And I would be in support of that.
I would too. I just feel like maybe that's the part that could be every 3 years to get at,
Sure.
to get at everybody in a more reasonable timeframe. And having a rotation in that way, and maybe not the in-unit if that's not necessary or something that people are excited about. But the safety piece of the common areas is important, and just making sure that that's gonna recoup the costs of what it would cost for BNF to do that in a potentially 3-year cycle.
So we can change the framework. Would you be supportive of the fee as well? The annual fee that we would like to implement?
If it includes inspections, yes, because otherwise I don't think we'd recoup the
Right,
cost of
okay.
that.
We're potentially, the scenario you're discussing is eliminating the in-unit inspection, retaining just common areas.
And I'd be curious, just is there I mean, the other towns that have these inspections, I assume there's an in-unit.
The Oak Park ordinance is, it's a random, they select one unit in the building.
Okay.
And North Riverside does both. They do common areas and a dwelling unit as well.
They do
And-
all dwelling units?
They do, and dwelling units, yep. You know, I'm sorry, I did not capture, it did say annual inspection, so, that was in the ordinance. I took it as, that was every year.
And my mind went to where Trustee Hendricks went, that building at 31st and Des Plaines, and I'm just curious if there's even anecdotal evidence or if there's empirical evidence of the towns that do in-unit inspections, how many of the life safety violations that are significant come from the in-unit versus the common areas? I mean, is there a way to find that out or figure that out? I mean, because I think the board is saying, you know, there's at least some consensus that, okay, we'll do the common areas, but we don't want to impose on people in their living areas, but I don't know if the other towns, if most of the problems, I don't remember what happened at the 31st and Des Plaines building, but that was the one that drew the most attention. Was that a common area problem, or was that an in-unit problem? Okay, I mean, if we could find out that, you know, maybe talk to the towns that if they have figures on where most of the violations
Sure.
come versus in-unit versus common, like the percentages of, and I think we're talking about life safety. I mean, I think the whole point of this is life safety. I understand the reluctance to want to go into people's living units, but,
It's a mechanical room.
hey, Brian?
It's a mechanical.
Brian.
You gotta put a sprinkler in there.
Brian.
Nobody's got one.
Brian, be quiet. You've been good all night. Brian, it's not your turn to talk. Come on, you know better than this. You're better than this. Stop it.
Not one house. is
Stop
open.
it.
You know it, but not one house.
Brian, you just can never control yourself. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So is that a way we can look
Sure.
into and like I said, I don't know if, you know, anecdotally you'll be able to give us, or the, you know, the benefit of having in-unit inspections, and I think.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If a tenant has a complaint and comes to the village with that complaint, what authority does the village have to enter the unit then?
We cannot enter the
You
unit.
can't enter the unit.
No.
So that was part of the discussion that EDC had. If they're registering, part of that registering would be where if there was a complaint, the village would have that authority to go in.
So if they were registered as the registered property owner for the building, and a resident came forward with the concern that there was a problem with their unit, we would then be able to go into that unit?
Right, that's what was discussed.
Even if the building owner,
It's the building owner who's registering.
oh,
Right, so whoever is registering, the building owner, whoever
Yeah.
registers that, part of that registration would be the authority for the village to go in upon a
in the
complaint
complaint
from the
scenario.
tenant.
Yeah.
This is to protect the tenant.
That seems, yeah.
But I mean, that seems to, put the onus on a tenant to come to the village to, if there's life safety issues, I don't know,
The only concern I have with the in-unit, it seems like it's a renter's penalty, right? We don't go into single-family home on a regular basis, there could be all sorts of life safety issues, right? But we respect their private property.
But I mean, I think that assumes that the renter is happy that there's a life safety issue and they don't want someone coming in to find it. I mean, I understand, you don't want someone walking through your living quarters, but I don't know that it's a penalty if there's a life safety issue in the village that the landlord isn't fixing it. There's no way for us to know about unless we see it.
Yeah, renter doesn't have any control over those systems.
I mean, I don't know how often they still happen. I used to get people, complain, my landlord won't do this, and we used to get the temperature, it's not hot enough, it's not cold enough, and, in terms of the limit on that. So I believe, I understand the EDC and the board's reluctance to send people into a living unit, but if we're talking life safety, that's why I'm curious as to whether most of the life safety issues are found in common areas, because if you're really trying to find the life safety issues, is inspecting the common areas gonna find it, or is it in the individual units? And then the board would just have to decide, are they willing to impose on what type of registry and how often the inspections would have to be and that type of thing. So I think my microphone's causing feedback.
I think it's mine and yours, because when I turn mine off, it goes away.
I'm gonna turn mine off.
Thanks,
So I'm gonna
guys.
stop talking.
I'm gonna start talking. I agree with what you were just saying. I think that either thing is a good step forward in making sure there's some accountability in upkeep of rental properties. And so I'm not sure which is the right path, or if both are the right way to do that. So I'd love to know a little bit more of what President Garvey was asking about, where the most benefit happens with those inspections.
Okay. Do you want me to bring this back then to our next meeting?
Please,
Yes, okay.
If you're able to gather that by
Sure.
the next meeting, we'll, I always, get the proposed agenda. If you can get it by the next meeting, let's bring it back, because in terms of the timeline for implementation, I know you've spent the EDC spent a lot of time on this, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Deanne. All right, that ends the items we have up for regular business. I'll once again open up public comment. Anyone on my right? No, there's no one even on my right. Anyone on my left? No public comment on my left. So we do have an executive session at 9:25 PM. I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific village employee, and pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss purchase or lease of real property for the village's use.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Kaluzny, second by trustee Gahuli to go into executive session. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark? Trustee Whitehead?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Naramatsu?
Aye.
Trustee Gilhuli?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're in executive session at 9:26 PM. Executive session's going to happen in this room, so anyone not participating in executive session, Tim, should we do item